This is a video I'm making on the modifications that I've made to my Hughes & Kettner 50-watt Duotone Combo. There's not a lot of information about this amp on the internet in general as far as user mods and things like that, so I figured somebody might be able to get some use out of it. So here's the chassis. It's already out of the cabinet. Here's the cabinet, all bare boned. You can see the reverb tank on the back panel right here. That normally is up like that. One of the first modifications I've made to this, I have this baffle board that I made into a 212 to make the cabinet 212. This baffle board was professionally made, but it's pretty simple if you know how to use wood, and you have the saws and things to do that. These are kind of reinforcement bars. This is actually the bottom. This goes into the bottom of the amp. This thing's really a pain to take apart, but this would normally be on the inside and go in there. And these little T-bars help secure it to the side of the cabinet to keep it nice and solid in there, and it works great. That was made by Anthony at Reason Amplifiers. You can check them out at reasonamplifiers.com. I believe it's either that or reasonamplification.com. But it's awesome and it works great and it's very solid. I took the original Vintage 30 and I added the G12H 70th anniversary Celestion, and these two together sound really good. So the reason I have this amp out and on the workbench is I'm making a modification to make my effects loop and reverb foot switchable, which it is not normally. So here's the chassis out of the amp. Once you get this off, these two screws actually attach it to the handle when it's inside the cabinet. And then to take out the chassis, you just remove these 4 hex screws here, and there's my other foot switch. So once it's out, you have 2 screws, one here, one here. I've already removed those, and this just lifts up and off. And you can see, while you're here, you can see our neon lights. They're right there. So, flipping around to the back, so what I've done is I've taken out the toggle switch that was right here on the send level. Normally this applies a 10 dB boost to the effects send level. I never found much use for it. I know a couple people that have this amp. Nobody I've ever talked to has ever really found much use for it. The effects send level on this amp is pretty low, so I think that Hughes & Kettner put this in there to compensate for that. However, because it's a parallel effects loop and you're basically running your guitar through twice, it really kind of just muddies everything up. So I never found much use for it, and it actually works fine on like a Boss delay. But I came across this issue of the effects loop and wanting to make it foot switchable. I got a TC Electronics Nova pedal, and it's digital. Because it's digital, there's a very small millisecond latency, but it's just enough to cause a chorusing effect when it comes back around, and it really doesn't sound good at all. So that was the first thought process in trying to make the effects loop switchable on and off. So I've added this 1/4-inch stereo jack to the inside of the amp, and you can see the effects loop was wired up on this toggle switch originally. There's a red, green, and a blue wire set that comes off of the effects loop circuit board, which is right next to this jack. Here's the old switch. It was just a 2-way. One way was normal send, one way was boosted send. The original wire setup was the green was in the middle, the blue was on one side, and the red was on the other. The blue sent it to the boosted signal, the red was the normal signal. So I took the blue out completely, just kind of cut it and tied it around itself, got it out of the way. And now the red and the green complete the circuit, and are on this lug right here. When you take a normal, this is just a Marshall type 2-button foot switch that I bought. Get to that in a second. This regular jack that is on the end of it. You have 3 sections: tip, ring, and sleeve. The tip goes in, makes contact to the plug that now carries the effects loop signal, and when it's on, it sends it through, brings it back like normal. When it's off, it shorts it out and it stops it right here, and the effects loop is off. So that solved that problem. The other thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to make this reverb switchable. So I talked to my amp guru, and he had the idea to short the reverb knob center lug to ground. Here's the reverb knob. Follow it around, and there it is, P5. And you can see that the center lug is damn near impossible to get to on its own. So what we came up with is this little trace right here on the circuit board goes to the center lug and goes all the way over to R35. So I took this wire, soldered it straight to the edge of, focus there, you can see it's soldered onto the end of R35. Keep it out of the way, I zip tied it up and around to a couple other wires to keep it clean, and it goes to the other lug on the stereo jack. So the center section of the 3-part plug now operates the reverb. When it's on, it completes the circuit. When it's off, it shorts it out, and the reverb is off. And so yeah, the reverb on this amp sounds really good, but sometimes you don't want any reverb, and it makes for a cool effect to have it on and off. Works really, really good. So while we're here, in case anybody's interested, as far as tubes go, these are EL34 Svetlanas. They're not anything special, they're just regulars from Svetlana. No frill tubes. My amp guy, I don't bias my own tubes, he put this pot in here to adjust the bias when he's biasing. This amp is obviously a real pain to take apart, so he wanted to be able to just bias it from the outside. So you can see right in here he put this pot in. There's these 2 red wires that go underneath and over to what was it looks like what was a resistor at one time. So he can now bias it without having to take it all apart. As far as preamp tubes go, this is R1. This is the clean gain stage and EQ. This is a regular Tesla JJ. The second one is the first 2 gain stages for the distortion. This is a regular Chinese 12AX7. V3 is a tungstol. One side of this is the last gain stage. I want to say this may even be the boost for the amp distortion channel. I'm not sure. You can switch these two this tube here is a tungstol 12AX7. I read a lot of good reviews on it. It was supposed to be very close to the Mullard style sounding. It's been in here for 2 years and it's never given me a problem. It's very robust, it's very solid, and it's very smooth. You can swap these 2 tubes because this is for the distortion. I think if you put this over here, you get a little bit more gain, which I don't like. I try to use as little preamp gain as I can, but if you're into metal or things like that and you want a lot of gain, you might be able to switch those 2. The other side of this tube goes for either the reverb or the effects loop. It's tube powered, which leads us over here. Again, I'm not sure which one is which, but this is either the end of the effects loop or the beginning of the reverb. This is also a Tesla JJ V4, and in V5 for our phase inverter, this is a Ruby tube that I just kind of had left over. It's a Ruby 12AX7 B selected. Thing about the phase inverter tube, some people will tell you that each side of the tube should be balanced and it makes your tone sound better. I've talked to a lot of people that have a lot of better tone than me, and they say it doesn't matter at all. So The tubestore.com has a little article on this, I believe, so check it out. This is not a balanced tube. I think you can pay $5 and find one that's balanced. I guess for $5 just to have the peace of mind, you could do it. I haven't had a chance to really get around to it. So that's that. The Duotone is now as versatile and diverse as you could possibly get it. I play in a cover band. I don't do any originals at all. And having the 2 master volumes with basically a Fender distortion and a Fender clean, Marshall distortion, effects loop, and kick-ass reverb. Think Dick Dale type reverb is a really good description. The beginning of Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I play in a cover band, so having all these different sounds, and I use the second master as my solo channel level, so I can set it as high or as low as I want. Yeah, it's great. I actually have 2 of these, so I just put this mod in. I'm gonna kind of test it out and kind of travel around with it, make sure it works okay. I have this foot switch. Like I said, I'm in the middle of. I'm gonna have to add a 9-volt battery to the diodes to make them power up, because the original foot switch is powered internally and has LEDs on it. There's no way to do it with this modification, because you don't want to add power into the audio signal, or so I'm told. Again, I'm consulting my other amp guru for that, but yeah, hopefully that'll work out fine. And I have all the schematics and manuals if anybody's interested. If you guys have any questions, shoot me an email. Thanks.